Today is the third session of the Emotional Harmony Seminar, and we're going to continue discussing the effect of addictions or attachments on our emotional life. And we'll start out with a discussion of the 7 centers of consciousness. 7 centers of consciousness. The concept here is that each person is motivated by his needs. Basically, everything that we do in life, we do it because there is a need which motivates us, which propels us to do that. And that there is a hierarchy of needs. That is, that there are basic needs which need to be fulfilled first. And when those needs or desires are fulfilled, then we begin to feel the next needs, the higher needs. And it's like a step ladder of ascending a staircase of various needs. Let's see how that fits in with the 7 centers of consciousness. The first center of consciousness, which is located at the base of the spine, is the security center. When we function from this center, when our actions are based on this center of consciousness, we seek security through whatever we do. So if we approach a person supposedly out of love, it's very possible that what we're saying here is that when I say I love you, what we're really saying is I need you in order to feel secure. It is not, if you like, a pure love. It's a feeling of love, but there's also a feeling of need, that I cannot feel secure without this person. Or we may approach our job, our profession, out of a need for security, rather than out of a need for meaningfulness, or need for creativity, or need for service. But see, one can approach his work needing security, or needing to offer, or needing to find a meaning in life. So we see that it's not the action which can tell us what the need is, but it's the motive with which we approach perform this action, so that we can approach a person out of love, we can approach a person out of need, and often we do both. We approach a person with both of these together. So when we are functioning from the first center of consciousness, we are dependent on persons or objects or situations or even substances such as cigarettes or coffee or tranquilizers or alcohol outside of ourselves in order to feel secure. And when we can't have that, when we are deprived of that person or that object or that situation or that substance or that activity, then we feel insecurity. There's a sense of fear. The first center of consciousness and the first need that a person has to fulfill is to feel secure. If he cannot feel secure, he cannot think about pleasure, he cannot think about knowledge, he cannot think about love, he cannot think about anything else. He has to first feel secure. Let us make a distinction, however, between being secure and feeling secure. There are millions of people who are materially secure, as secure as someone can be materially, because in the material world, in reality, there is no security. You never know when a brick is going to fall on your head, you're going to leave the physical world. So you never know when there's going to be an earthquake or a fire. You can have all the money in the world and all of the friends in the world, and in a few minutes later you could not even exist. You could, everything could be destroyed. So in reality, security based on the physical world is impossible. But there is a general sense of security that I have a house, I have enough money in order to have my clothing, my food, I have people around me who care for me. That is, persons have everything that they should have in order to feel, to lifestyle at least fairly secure. But they do not feel secure. Other people have nothing. I have seen beggars on the street in India who appear to me anyway much happier than many people that I know here in Greece, who have everything that they need to have. And they don't have any insecurity, these people. They have nowhere to sleep. They have no home. They sleep on the road every day. But they are smiling all day long. So there's a big difference between being secure, that is having what we need to feel secure, and feeling secure. Once we begin feeling secure, then our energy goes to the second center. And the second center of consciousness is the pleasure center. The center through which we try to obtain the feeling of pleasure. Now, pleasure is a state of consciousness which we feel when there is a stimulus given to the nervous system. That stimulus could be to the skin, it could be sexual, it could be food, it could be sights and sounds or smells. It could be chemical substances such as tranquilizers or alcohol or drugs of some type, which create a sense of pleasure. It's a stimulus, an excitement, or a relaxation of the nervous system. When we identify or relate our sense of pleasure with an external stimulus, and this repeats itself a number of times, we gradually become addicted to this external source. It's a source of stimulation or relaxation, whatever it may be, a substance, a person, an activity, a sight, visual or oral, or acoustic. We begin to believe that we must have that in order to feel pleasure, or that we must have that in order to feel well. And we become addicted to that. And then when we don't have it, we feel deprivation and all of the symptoms of deprivation. We feel anxiety, we feel unnervousness, we feel unhappy, we feel depressed. We begin to desire it intensely, and how we can get it again in order to be satisfied. The satisfaction lasts for a certain period of time, depending on the stimulus. I mean, if it's a candy bar, it could be 15 minutes before the pleasure goes by, and then we're feeling drained of energy or guilty or whatever each person, whatever beliefs each person has about his various pleasures. We're not saying here that pleasures are evil. We're just simply saying that if I am locked into a certain pleasure addiction, and that addiction is destroying my health, or destroying or causing me to lose large amounts of time or energy, or creating conflict with people around me, then I may want to analyze and to see whether keeping this addiction is useful at this point, or whether it would be more useful to free myself from that addiction. So an addiction is a state in which our happiness or our security is dependent on something outside of ourselves. Whenever our inner state is dependent on something or someone outside of ourselves, we become vulnerable. Now, this is a human state. It's very natural. This is the way we all are. It's not to be condemned. But the question is whether we want to remain that way, and whether there is something that we can do about that, that is to transfer at least some of that security and some of that pleasure within us and not be so dependent on what we have or what we do not have outside of ourselves. The third level of consciousness, or center of consciousness, is the center of power or affirmation. It's the center in which we seek, from which we seek to affirm our self-worth and our strength, our ability, our power. Because it's called the power center because we identify our self-worth with how strong we are in relationship to other people. Now the word strong here could mean muscularly, or in intelligence, or in beauty, or in money, or in professional achievement. That is, we tend to compare ourselves with other persons, and in comparing ourselves to determine whether we are worthy or not. That is, the belief is that I am worthy when I am better than others, when I am more capable, more intelligent, more beautiful, more successful. And so this center causes us to seek out persons, money, situations, professional situations, in order to verify our self-worth, to verify that we are worthy, that we are capable, and we want to verify our self-worth because only then do we believe that we are lovable. And we want to verify that we are lovable because only then can we feel secure. Because we cannot feel secure by ourselves. We fear to be alone. And so the beliefs are that if people love me, I won't be alone, and people will love me only if I am worthy, and I am worthy if I am intelligent, if I don't make mistakes, if I am perfect, if I am better than others, if I do whatever people ask me to do and never say no to them. Each person has his own criteria, his own prerequisites in order to feel that he is worthy. And these are programmed into his subconscious mind as a child. And then he becomes locked into that and seeks to fulfill those prerequisites. And the basic prerequisite is what other people think about me. This is the basic prerequisite. It is how other people see me. It is, we feel ourselves acceptable and lovable and worthy when we get the message from other people that they respect us, that they care for us, that they believe that we are worthy. And so our energy, our time, our abilities, and our money are all locked into trying to fulfill these three centers. These centers very much control our lives. That is, all of the time of the day, most of the time of our whole lifetime is dependent on creating an external situation in which we feel security, pleasure, or happiness, or satisfaction, and our self-worth, self-esteem. Now, this is fine as long as we're happy. You'll see that in this seminar, we don't make very many value judgments. We don't say that this is good and that this is bad. What we ask is it making me happy? Is it useful? Is it working? Am I getting the security and the happiness and the feeling of self-worth that I want to get, that I'm trying to get, by allowing it to depend on these external situations? Or has it happened that I have made this great investment in an external situation, in a relationship, in money, in profession, and various other external factors, and I cannot control them, and they're not giving me what I want. They're not giving me that sense of security. They're not giving me that sense of self-worth that I'm seeking. That in actuality, my efforts are in vain, and that it would be much better for me at this moment to find an internal source of security, an internal source of self-acceptance, an internal source of satisfaction and pleasure. This is more easily said than done, of course. This is a lifetime work, or perhaps many lifetimes of work, the possibility to do this. But it's the only way out. As long as these basic needs are dependent on other people and situations outside of ourselves to be fulfilled, it's very unlikely that we will ever be happy or very fulfilled in our lives. So the goal here is to see where we are attached, to what we are attached, and what it is that we're trying to get from that. Let's look at one of the sheets which we have given you to work with today. It's a list of addictions. It says, make a list of the persons, objects, substances, situations, events, or activities which you feel or believe you need to have in order to feel happy, secure, affirmed, worthy, or in general, satisfied with your life and yourself, with yourself and your life. In order to understand whether you are attached to some degree to each possible stimulus, imagine that you do not have it. Imagine that you do not have your present spouse or friend or child or parent or money or home or profession or car. That is, you do not have that. In order to see how important it is to you, you have to do a little bit of fantasizing here. And try to determine how you would feel, whether you would feel insecure or demeaned or deprived. Try to discover exactly why you need each of those and what you believe that you will not have if you do not have that being, object, substance, or, there should be or, event or activity, etc. And then we have two columns here. On the left-hand side, we write that which I need. This could be a being, an object, a situation, a substance, an activity. And on the right, we write, what will be missing if I do not have that? Well, security, happiness, meaningfulness, self-worth, pleasure, or other things which are not written here. You don't have to be limited to what is written here. No one is going to tell you that you have to overcome an addiction or an attachment. That is your choice. You can make here a list of 30 addictions and then say, I don't want to get free from any of those. I like the way I am. That's your choice. It's not my choice. It's not the choice of this group. Every person will have to decide for himself if certain addictions are creating problems in his life at this point or not. We have hundreds of addictions. And we can only work on a few at a time. So we're not trying to say at this point that we're going to leave everything, we're going to go off into a cave and we're going to live without any clothing in this cave. See which addictions are creating negative emotions in your life at this time. This is the question. Behind every negative emotion, there is some addiction. There is something that I want which I'm not getting. It could be love, it could be affection, it could be understanding, it could be money, or to have a child, or to not have an illness. Whatever it is, I'm unhappy, I have negative emotions when I don't have something that I want. Or the opposite, I have something that I don't want, which is the same thing. Down below, there's two more questions. Now, encircle the attachments from which you would like to free yourself from at this stage of your life. At this stage. In these weeks or months that we have in front of us. And 3, why would you like to get free from those attachments? What is the negative effect of those attachments in your life? Are they destroying your health, or your energy, or your relationships? Or are they're causing you to use a lot of time towards something which logically you feel is not so important? For example, the attachment to, an intense attachment to cleanliness and to order may cause some people to have obsessiveness with that and to lose 10 hours a day cleaning and putting order, so which means that very little time is left for creativity, for relationships, for enjoyment. Just one example. Every person has his own attachments which can drain large portions of his energy, and he may feel that there are other things that he wants to do with his life or her life, but is not able to do that because this addiction is holding him in this pattern of behavior. So the question is yours, the answer is yours. You will decide if and what addictions you would like to work on. We'll go back to this in a moment. When we begin to transform addictions into preferences, then our energy begins to rise to a higher level. Now, what's the difference between an addiction and a preference? When we are addicted to something, we are happy when we have it, and we are unhappy when we don't have it. We cannot be happy without it until we overcome the addiction. When we have a preference for something, we are happy when we have it, but we are okay when we don't have it. It is, we diminish the dependency. It doesn't mean that we become neutral and that we don't want anything. We know what we want, but we also know that we can live without it. You understand the difference? With the addiction, I believe I must have that, and there's no possibility of security or happiness without it. When it's a preference, I know I want it, and I will do whatever I have to do to get it, ethically, to get it. But I will be able to accept not having it if that's the way things turn out, that I will be able to live and be happy. I don't believe that my life will be destroyed, my life will be meaningless or unbearable if I cannot have it. That's the difference between an addiction and a preference. When we begin to transform our addictions into preferences, then the energy can start rising. And it goes into the fourth center, which is the heart center, or the love center, in which for the first time in our lives, we begin to experience selfless love. It is, as the love that we have experienced, most of us until now, is not actually love. It's love combined, mixed with need. Often when we say, I love you, we mean I need you for security, I need you for pleasure, I need you for my self-affirmation. Because most of us are programmed that as a man, I am worthy if I have a woman, or if there's a woman who desires me. And as a woman, I am worthy if there's a man who desires me exclusively and doesn't love anybody else, but loves me more than he loves anyone else in the world. Then I am worthy. Then I feel my self-worth. And so our sense of self-worth is very dependent on feeling exclusive love from another person and being admired and accepted and receiving affection and various forms of expression of love from that person. And that is need and jealousy that we feel when that person shows love to another person, or hurt or anger when that person doesn't behave towards us in the way that we want, is not based on the love that we feel for that person, but it's based on what we need from that person and are not receiving. So we're going to have to change completely our conception of love and the way it's been given to us through television and movies and the various songs that we hear on the radio, especially in Greece, which are all, they present love as pain, love as suffering, love as need, love as I cannot live without you. This is not love. Love is the desire for the other to be complete and happy with whatever situation and with whomever that person needs to be complete and happy within himself. Just for that person to be well, that is love. I want that person to be well and happy, whatever he needs to be that way. That which creates our pain in relationships is what we need from others and are not receiving, which is affection, affirmation, their love for us, support, truth, various needs that we have to receive. So for the first time, that is, as we get free from the need for the other to give us security, to give us pleasure, to give us affirmation through his presence or through his behavior, we can now love him unconditionally. That is, independently of how he behaves and what he does. This is the first experience of true love. This is the fourth center of consciousness. The fifth center of consciousness, which is located in the throat area. Of course, the heart center is located in the center of the chest. We're not talking about the organ, the heart. We're talking about an energy center, which is in the center here. This fifth center is the center of plenty, the cornucopia center, the horn of plenty. And what is the concept behind this center? A person here, having passed through, if you like, the initiation of the love center, has become more selfless, and he begins to imagine himself as a cell in the body of humanity. And as a cell, he realizes that he receives from the consciousness, that universal consciousness, or that collective consciousness of the body of humanity. It's as if humanity is a being now, in a universal being in which every body in that being is a cell. And it doesn't mean just humans, but animals and plants and insects and everything that there is. Myself being a cell in that body, that body will give to me everything that I need, as I, as a consciousness, give to every cell in my body everything that it needs. I supply it unconsciously, without thinking, with its food, with its hormones, with its antibodies. I remove its waste products. I take care of everything. And that cell serves me. He lives for me. He lives within me and for me. And he cooperates totally with the other cells and lives for the other cells. He doesn't try to hoard 3 tons of oxygen for himself, or food, or hormones, because he would just destroy himself in the first case, and he would just then remove the supplies from the rest of the body, and the body would die. And a cell which lives in this body, which does not live for the body, is called a cancerous cell. And that cancerous cell gradually multiplies because the egotistical behavior of one person creates the egotistical behavior of another person, and each person closes off into himself and stops living for the whole, seeking to protect himself or his small grouping, which is called family. And in such a case, this cancer destroys the body. And what happens to the cancer cell when the body is destroyed? It dies also. So humanity at this point has a very serious case of cancer, in which all of the cells are living for themselves, and they're not interested in what's happening to the other cells, and they're not interested in what's happening to the organs, which are the various countries of that body, and they're not interested at all in what's happening to the whole. When a person rises into this state of consciousness, he's interested, and he stops living for himself, but starts living for the whole, that his personal needs are greatly diminished: food, simple clothing, a place to live. He's free now from the need to hoard money for security. He's free now from the need to have expensive things in order to prove his worth to other persons. He's free now from the need to spend large amounts of time seeking personal pleasure. And he serves the whole, and the whole then serves him and takes care of his needs, whatever his needs, not comforts, not desires, but it's just been made clear. Whatever he needs to survive, whatever he needs to grow spiritually, and whatever he needs to perform the duties for which he incarnated. That is, to perform what we call his dharma, his goal in life. to manifest his goal. If he needs many millions of dollars to do that, he'll have that. And if his goal is to simply raise 2 or 3 children, he'll have what he needs to do that. And if his goal is to cultivate the earth, he will have what he needs to do that, because each person has the reason for which he has incarnated on the earth. So in this center, the person lives Christ's promise that if you live according to the will of the Father, all of your needs will be taken care of, as are the needs of the birds and the lilies of the field. Christ promised that. Few people believe in that promise, and few people then live in that way. So that's the 5th level of consciousness, in which a person is becoming freer from his personal limitations and is living for the whole. The 6th center of consciousness is here in the forehead, and it is the witness center, the center from which we become the witness of our personality, of our bodies, of our minds. We live our lives naturally, as all other persons do, but it's as if we're hanging above, a little out of ourselves continuously. There's this state of, we're doing everything that we need to do, we're living our life purpose, we're in full activity. It doesn't mean that we sit back and do nothing. But there's a part of ourselves which is continuously aware that I am not he who is doing, but I am this spiritual consciousness which is aware of what is going on, and that my real identity is beyond this personality and the actions of this personality. That is, we begin to become identified with the soul, or with the spirit. And therefore, in this state, there are very few, if any, negative emotions. But it does not mean that there is not love and that there is not compassion, because there is definitely a sense of unity with all beings. Because when we observe, when we live in the witness level, we begin to realize and to experience that we, as a consciousness, are not limited to this body, but that our real state is a universal consciousness which is manifesting through all bodies. And this is the last state of consciousness in the physical realm, which is the top of the head here, which is the unity center, or the bliss center, in which we experience the bliss of unity with all beings and all things and all events. There is no illusion anymore of separateness. The whole concept behind this idea of spiritual evolution is that all sense of separateness is actually an illusion. For example, in the movies, when we go to the movies, to the cinema, there is a light in the projector which is white and pure and without form and without color. And this light passes through the film and obtains color and form. And we can see these lights playing in the smoke in the movie theater. And then it hits on the screen, and we see the concrete image which appears. The source of that image, which is continuously changing, is this pure, unchanging white light, which never actually changes. It appears to change as it impinges upon the screen. Now let's imagine that there is an image on the film which has one of those gladiator films, say, with 2,000 people, or say 10,000 people, and then there's 2 people that are fighting, and there are people that are on one side and people that are on the other side, and there's the stadium, and there's the animals and the trees and the sky and the earth, and all of those are the creations of one light. There's not one light which is creating the one who is another light who is creating the other who is fighting with him. It's the same light. And it's the same light which is creating all of the persons that are watching, and is creating the earth and the sky and all the beings around. And so this model can help us to understand what we mean by universal consciousness, that there is a universal consciousness which is appearing as all of the persons, all of the animals, the insects, the earth, the sky, the planets which we see. We call it God. But now we're, in a way, changing how we perceive God. We're not perceiving Him as a man who's sitting in the sky with a beard and is looking down and punishing some and rewarding others. We're now imagining a universal consciousness which is expressing its own self through all of this manifestation. This is experienced in the bliss center. That I am not this personal consciousness, I am this universal consciousness, and I am one with all beings. And here we can understand Christ's words in the Gospel of St. John, I am in you, you are in me, I am in the Father is in me. That is, I am consciousness, and as consciousness I am your consciousness, and as consciousness you are in me. So we will speak enough about consciousness later on. Let's come back to reality now. Reality is here. The first three centers where we're basically living at this point and experiencing the pain of life because we believe that we need some things which we are not getting, and we experience people as separate from ourselves, and therefore we fear. I would like to make a distinction here that, which I mentioned earlier, that we cannot judge from which center we are functioning by the activity, but we will have to determine the motive of the activity. For example, one person can eat out of the need for security, especially if he has passed through a period of life, or his parents passed through a period of life in which there was not enough food. So food can become a symbol of security. Another eats out of pleasure. Another may eat out of affirmation, that he can have rich types of foods, and that he is successful, and he can have caviar and champagne and whatever else he may want to have in order to affirm that I am successful. Another may eat out of love. That is, by keeping my body healthy, I can serve those around me who have need. Another may see eating as a communion with the divine, may see that food as a manifestation of universal consciousness, and see every meal as a communion. So it's not the act, but the center from which I approach that act. The same is true for the sexual act. It can be a source of security for those who feel separateness and loneliness. It's definitely a source of pleasure. For many, it's a source of affirmation that there is a woman who desires me or a man who desires me, so that I am a man, I am a woman, I am verified in my sexual role. It can be love. It can be also a manifestation of that inner feeling of unity, spiritual unity, which manifests on a physical level. So the same act, no one can judge what the other person is doing from where he is coming. Only he himself can judge for himself from where he is coming as he is approaching everything that he's doing in his life. The same with selfless service. Some people may do selfless service out of a feeling for security, because God will love me and God will protect me if I serve others. Others out of the feeling of pleasure that I am a good person, or I am worthy, or for self-affirmation. Others have a feeling of actual love. And others, for others, when you're in the fifth center of consciousness, there's no difference between serving and brushing your teeth. Because your purpose in life is to serve. You are a cell in the body of humanity. You don't think you're doing anything special when you're serving. That's your life function. Just as eating and brushing your teeth and sleeping are your life functions. You don't give any special importance to that. So it's important as we begin observing ourselves in these weeks, not to judge the actions, but to seek to understand the motives. From which center am I approaching each person and each activity in my life? Now, what are some of the disadvantages in being controlled by the first three centers? One is that so much of our energy, of our time, our money, and all of our resources, spiritual and material and emotional, are lost in a vain pursuit of some happiness which we never get through those external sources. So in a sense, we lose our lives. We sell our soul in a certain way. And that could be different for each person. One person may be attached to his child's success, his child's success at school, or his child's health. Another person at his professional success. Each person has, another person may be attached to his appearance, that people will love me if I'm beautiful, if I'm handsome. Secondly, we cannot see people as they are, but we see them through our needs. That is, we don't see other people as eternal souls in the process of evolution. We see them as potential threats to the fulfillment of our addiction, or potential help towards the fulfillment of our addictions. And our feelings towards those persons have nothing to do with what those persons really are, but whether we believe that they will help us or obstruct us in the fulfillment of our addictions. And thus a person addicted, for example, to his wife, will see all other men as threats. A person addicted to his job, in his professional standing, will see all other professionals working next to him as threats to his position. A person addicted to his appearance will see other people who take care of their appearance and are addicted to their appearance as threats, because if they are more beautiful or more handsome than me, I may lose my place in others' eyes. A person addicted to being affirmed through his intelligence may feel the need to compete continuously with others around him who are also intelligent, and continually getting into arguments, not because he really doesn't agree with the other, but he wants to prove that I am more intelligent, because only then am I worthy and acceptable, you see. So these addictions cause us to lose tremendous quantities of our life energy on the one hand, and secondly, they don't allow us to have harmonious relationships with all the people in our lives, because we break them down into these two categories of persons. So an addiction is a belief. As we're looking for addictions now, addictions are rather states which are created by the belief that I must have this. Because if I don't have this, I will not be able to feel this: security, pleasure, happiness, self-worth. Addictions work on us in the same way that hunters catch monkeys in India and in all the world. How do they catch monkeys? They take a bottle about the size of those old milk bottles that we used to have, and they put a few peanuts in there, or a banana, and they tie the bottle to a tree. The monkey comes, sees the food, and is very interested, and puts his hand in like this, and grabs it. And he has the banana in his hand, or the peanuts in his hand, but now his fist does not fit through the hole. Can't get his hand out. But he never thinks about letting go of the food. And he remains there trapped for days, until the hunter comes and he simply picks him up and puts him in a cage. And he's trapped for the rest of his life. And that's how we are. We've got our hands in the various bottles with various bananas and peanuts. They're causing us to be trapped, suffering, and we feel that we are being abused by other persons in other situations, and we have nothing to do but simply let go of the banana. But we don't do it. That's how addictions work on us. So think about this week what are your bananas? What are your peanuts? Where are you holding on to some things to be accepted by this person? And if this person doesn't accept me and doesn't prefer me above all other persons, I can never be happy. That's a banana in a bottle. There are other bananas that are not in bottles. So when we see that this attachment, the acceptance from my parents, I've seen people that are 40 years of age, very successful, have the admiration and the esteem of hundreds of people, but because one parent has not given his okay, he's still in a state of seeking this affirmation. Still cannot accept himself. Still must prove himself. That's a banana. But just let go and realize that I am worthy, even if this parent cannot say, yes, I accept you. Yes, I believe you are worthy. Yes, you did something with your life. So we have that choice. In the case of each addiction, we can keep on holding on and saying, I must have this affirmation, I must have this source of security, I must have this pleasure, even though it's destroying my health, destroying my happiness, causing me to not proceed and create that which I have come to create in my life, or to let go. I think another good example of what our relationship could be to that on which we depend would be the example of a bird perched on a branch. The bird perches on the branch and uses it, depends on it. It rests, eats, sings, makes love, enjoys life there. He is depending on that branch. When the branch, there comes a huge wind, a very strong wind, and that branch is in danger of breaking and disappearing from under him, does the bird fear? No. Because the bird knows two things. First of all, he knows there are other branches. And secondly, he knows that he can fly on his own. That he doesn't need the branch. That he can use the branch, he can rest on the branch, enjoy the branch, as long as it exists, but he does not need the branch. He can be okay without the branch, and there are also other branches. So this should be our relationship. We're not saying don't have a spouse, don't have a car, don't have a job, don't have anything. We must live in the world. The world is our school. And our relationships are our school, our lessons. And all of that is the way we evolve through all of those things. Retreating will not give us greater evolution, at this point at least. But to realize that we can enjoy, the only way that we can actually enjoy the branch is to get free from fearing it will break. Because if I'm on the branch and I'm in a continuous state of fearing, maybe perhaps it leaves, perhaps it becomes destroyed, and I don't have that branch tomorrow, I can't enjoy it today. And that's what we get. We get into that relationship with the things to which we are addicted. Rather than enjoying them, we live in the continual fear we may lose them. And so we'd have no enjoyment whatsoever. And all that is a process of realizing our inner strength, our inner security, our inner happiness. So what I would like you to do today and for next week is to begin to make a list of your addictions. And to see, and you decide on one or two addictions for next week, that you would like to begin to transcend, would like to begin to transform into preferences. Now, as we said, behind every addiction is a belief which says, I must have that. And then there's a belief behind that which says, why I must have that. And a belief even behind that is the process of self-analysis, is like opening a box and finding another, and opening that box and finding another, and opening that box and finding another. And the last box is the belief that I am this body and this personality. that's a difficult box to open and to change, because that's our basic belief at this moment. It's our basic experience. We can't negate that at this point of the process. But from that smallest box, I am this body and I am this personality, many other boxes are created which can be removed if we feel the need and if we desire. Now, to help us with that, we have two other sheets to look at this week. I'm giving you things in a little condensed form because we're doing 20 weeks of work in 16 weeks. And so it will require of you a little more homework to do than is usually given to the other classes. But I think it's worth it. I think you can handle it. The second sheet I would like you to look at is a list of situations where you lose your composure, love, happiness, harmony, or security. Make a list of cases in which you lose, I would say, any of the above feelings. These could be in relationship to other people, to life in general, or to your own self. I would say that this sheet needs to be filled out before the other one. I would say that the series of working on these sheets would be to do this one first. Just to bring to your mind, in which situations do I lose my sense of peace, my feeling of composure, my love or sense of unity with the other person? Because it's easier to find the situation than it is to find the addiction. The second question is, to what am I addicted here which is causing me to lose my peace of mind? You understand? So let's look first for the situations. When someone criticizes me, when I make a mistake, when my children are ill, when my spouse is not feeling well, when he's unhappy, when I think about my economic situation, whatever it may be. That's the event or the case, the situation. In the right-hand column, we write the emotions. What emotions we have in those situations when we are confronted with those events. Then there's some questions below. Circle the case which you would first like to deal with, which you would first like to deal more positively. What lesson is the lesson you could learn here? Now, this is a difficult question. I would say that we could stop at number 2. Make a little small note there. Stop at number 2, and then go to the questionnaire for analyzing emotions and guide for active listening. Okay. Now don't be confused. So we start out with the list of situations. That's number 1. Okay. We go to question number 2. We circle the situations in which we want to get free from. Okay. And then we go to the questionnaire for analyzing emotions. Now this questionnaire is a sample of what is called active listening. Active listening is a psychological method, most expounded by the psychologist Carl Rogers, an American psychologist, in which we don't give any advice to anybody. It's a system in which we have faith in the inner knowledge, which is in that person, waiting to come forth if the right questions are asked. It's like the method which Socrates used some thousands of years ago, in which he didn't say things are like this. He used questions and brought the truth from within the person. In this case, however, it's not philosophical, it's emotional, the questioning. Let's look at these questions. These are questions which your group leader may ask frequently, or which one of you may ask to the other in the group frequently, but questions which are asking you to ask yourselves this week about one of these situations from which you want to get free. You understand? Okay. Please make a list of stimuli, situations, events, or behaviors, or even your own thoughts, which disturb your sense of inner peace, happiness, harmony, or ability to feel love and unity with those around you. That's what you already did on the other sheet. And you understand? That's the list that you made on the first sheet. That's already been done the moment you have answered this sheet. 2. Select one of those which you would most like to work on at this point of your life so as to be able to retain your inner peace, happiness, love, and unity even when confronted with that particular stimuli. And that's the second question here in the sheet. Okay? Now we go on. What exactly is that which happens, which triggers this emotional mechanism in you? What is the stimuli? Box number 1. You remember the boxes which we talked about last week? the 4 boxes. Box number 1 is the stimuli. Describe in some detail so that we can understand exactly what it is about that which bothers you. Here we have to have a certain amount of clarity. For example, someone in a group would say, the stimulus for me this week is that my child rejects me, or my spouse rejects me. That is already an interpretation. We don't know what the other person does or does not do, which makes us make that interpretation. We're not interested in that's an interpretation. I want to know the words that he says, the actions that he does or does not do, the specific movement. You understand? We're looking for a specific action or behavior, not our interpretation that he does that because he does not love me. That's my interpretation. It could be completely different reality within him. He may be doing that because he fears, because he has desires, because he has needs. He's blocked emotionally. It may not be because he doesn't love me or wants to harm me or rejects me. That's my interpretation of his actions. I want to see exactly the actions. You understand? 4. What emotions do you feel when in contact with that stimulus? If you have various emotions at different times, think of them all. Box number 3. Do you remember what we said about the boxes? The first box is the stimulus. That goes to our beliefs. Box number 3 is the emotions. The 4th is the reaction. So now we've established the stimulus. We're now establishing the emotions. Box number 3. Now, 5. What do you believe? Now we go to box number 2. About what is happening, about your own self, about life itself, which makes you feel those emotions when in contact with that stimulus. Box number 2. You may feel this a little bit confusing because it's in the beginning, but all this will become a natural process for you as time goes on. 6. Which do you believe might be the childhood experiences which may have caused you to believe those beliefs and have those feelings? 7. How do you react when you feel those emotions in those situations? Internally, you construct your muscles. Does your blood pressure go up or down? And externally, what is your behavior like? This is box number 4. 8. How did you react as a child in similar situations? Or how did your parents react, if you can remember? 9. Which beliefs would you like to change so as to be able to retain your peace, happiness, love, and unity even when confronted with the particular stimulus we are now talking about, which until now created problems for you? 10. What new beliefs would help you to confront this matter differently? We have not gone into learning new beliefs yet, so if you can't answer that, don't worry about it. And 11. What else do you think you could do to help yourself get free from this? Also, we have not discussed methods of getting free yet. We'll be discussing those in a few weeks. And 12. For those who are familiar with the following, which do you think might be helpful? Exercises and breathing techniques, changes in dietary habits, positive thought projection, keeping a diary, strengthening spiritual or logical beliefs, and other. From 10 and below, you don't need to answer because we have not gone ahead into that yet. But if you have some answers, answer them. Okay. So these are 3 sheets which will help us go much more deeply into an understanding of ourselves for next week. I would like you to work on them and come prepared to share in the group. I'm not sure that I will give you new information next week. I will meditate on it and I will see. Perhaps what we will do next week is use the whole class just for working on what we've discovered in order to absorb, because I think we've taken quite a large meal these past few weeks, and it might be better to chew on it a little bit and to swallow it and to just absorb it. So maybe we'll see. I'll maybe speak about 10 minutes, 15 minutes next time, and we'll do a lot of group work trying to see what's going on. Okay, questions which you have about what we have said today, about the 7 centers of consciousness, about the addictions and the transformation of addictions into preferences. Yes?
You said that when we are in that center, the 6th center,
Witness center, yes.
we watch ourselves, we are the witness.
Yes.
And who are we, the witness or the one who can witness? And if we are the one who is witnessing, what happens to the one who does? Who is that person and what happens to that person?
The question which you're asking requires an extensive philosophical explanation, which would be a little difficult at this point with what we know. I would just answer simply, we are the witness, that is our true reality. The one we are watching is like a clothing or an instrument or an organ which we use for the duration of this lifetime in order to express who we are. So you can imagine that personality in the body as a projection, a partial projection of what you are. What you are is something great, something spiritual and divine. And you're projecting a small part of that into the physical world, the material world, in order to express yourself. The quality of that projection is in a process of evolution. And it's not perfected yet. And what we're involved with at this point is perfecting that organ of expression. So what happens to that is that it evolves and develops so that it becomes a greater... It can express what I am more completely and more perfectly.
Well, when you talk about these centers and whatever we're doing or feeling may be from a number of or from one or other centers, how do we know that we're not kidding ourselves?
Because you can't kid yourself for a long time. Because your emotions are stronger than your illusion, and they will gradually come out and show. What I'd like to say, though, is you brought to mind something that I didn't say, that we do not function exclusively from one center. We function from all of these centers simultaneously at various moments in the day. So at some point I can be functioning from the heart center, and then someone could push one of my buttons and I could drop down to the security center within a fraction of a second. So it's this is moving up and down. It's not like I'm in this center and I'm functioning this year from this center. It's not.
You're conscious of where you are, or at some point one becomes conscious of where you are.
Yeah, yeah. But many times we may approach something with double and triple motives.
But you're conscious of that. I mean,
yeah, you're conscious of it.
Well, I'm doing it for this, this, and this.
Yeah. You become aware of the various factors. And life has a way of feeding back to us our motives. And when they're not pure, creating a situation in which we see that it's not pure by creating within us some kind of disillusionment or fear or anger or hurt, which would all be indications that I'm seeking something for myself in this. You see?
One doesn't sort of, everything you do, you're not sort of standing back and questioning it every time you do it.
No. Someone may go through a stage like this, and it's a confusing stage, and a stage in which it's unpleasant perhaps, but you go through that and you become natural again, and you go through a stage of not being very natural, where you're just questioning everything and looking at everything, and you become you feel that rather mechanical, but that passes and you connect with another source of naturalness, and you stop questioning everything in that way. Yes?
It seems to me that with the world as it is, you walk down the street and they beat you up, or, nothing right here, and they rape your daughter, or they murder your dad for going to Burger King, or whatever.
Let's look for that then. Let's go for that. It's fine.
What's going on around you? I mean, you already get straight from well, honey, what do you mean?
I do know one person. I do know one person who I believe functions in that center.
You do know.
I believe, yes.
The functions where?
From that center. He's a spiritual leader who lives in India at this point. But we don't have to, look at the top of the mountain. Let's look at where we are, and let's take a step each week. Because when you look at the top of the mountain, you see how far it is, you become disillusioned. And so don't look at that. Just step by step. Would I like to be more loving tomorrow? Would I like to be freer tomorrow, happier, more peaceful within myself, better health? Don't make that mistake to look so far ahead. And
I thought that we're supposed to be looking for now, not tomorrow or yesterday.
Now, would I like to be more peaceful at this moment? Which is the belief which is creating my pain at this moment? Can I get free from that belief? Would I like to be free from that belief? No.
Yeah, just one thing also on that same point. It just appears to me that even if one stops at the third level and takes life very materialistic, I will live for 80 years and then die. Those same ideas of letting things flow and the self-expression, even within the first 3 levels, will make even those 80 years so much better that even if that was the goal, it would be worth it.
Yeah, but you can't do that when you're when you're locked in the first 3 levels, because your fear is so great, because you believe that your security, your safety, and your self-worth is so dependent on what is outside of yourself that it's difficult to flow. You have a great need to resist and control. You can begin flowing. It's not that you stop having. These needs become actually fulfilled when you go into the higher centers. Then they become fulfilled. Because then you can flow, and your sense of security is within yourself. But I think what you're saying is that this way of thinking is not only useful in spiritual life, it's useful in material life. Right. And I agree with you 100%. Yes.
And what about places like Somalia, where people are just concerned about survival,
Yeah.
basically? Do they have any opportunities of going beyond those 3, the survival?
Well, they do, definitely. As I mentioned, those people in India who are in the streets feel secure, even though materially they don't have a lot of things. But if we were in Somalia now, we wouldn't be teaching this class. We'd be doing something else completely. Maybe how to find water, how to use the water efficiently, how to grow your own vegetables. It is each country and each society has other lessons to learn at this point. And we who have fulfilled these basic needs to some extent are now feeling the need for something else. And that's why we're here. Something is saying, well, my life is not totally complete at this moment, even though I can see that I have a lot of things to fulfill me. So we would do other things there. But they do. Each person there is experiencing that hunger in a different way, depending on his faith, his belief, his way of reacting.
So, maybe getting clear, some clarity there. You can actually go beyond these spheres without having necessarily fulfilled
Externally. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Although we see that people become interested more in this in countries in which they have fulfilled those needs. I mean, you see, this is first started out in the U.S. and in Europe and Australia, where the level of comfort had reached a certain level and people were still feeling empty. And then it was this great boom of this spiritual movement. And now it's moving into countries which are just beginning to feel themselves that sense of affluence and comfort.
So India is very poor.
Well, you know, the truth is that there are perhaps a number of people in India who definitely are connected with this kind of thinking, because it's the religion in many cases into which they were born, and a system of philosophy, not a religion, a system of thinking into which they were born. But I would say that most of India is chasing after material success. That is, they're caught up in that since television came, and they began seeing these images that most of the young Indians are searching for the American dream.
But many are not as well, because I read, and the one boy, he told me, I feel very sorry for all of you people from you.
Ah, that's good.
And that, that's the most
What about the people in, say, people in Africa, the ones who are immediately dying at the moment? Everything got their own spiritual background. They're very close to nature.
I'm sure they do. It's not something that I have studied, but I'm sure that they do. And I'm sure that many of them are able to use their experience at this moment. Yeah. Mm. We may have a chance to use such an experience. You never know what's going to happen. Yes.
In doing that, with the weeks that I've been following you in Australia and I have experienced a very great amount of guilt for things I'm feeling and doing, which maybe I had and I wasn't conscious of it, but now I'm very conscious of it. Different body pains and
Different
body pains.
pains.
And also a great amount of hopelessness, like I have no hope. Like,
You have no hope to do what?
There's nothing that can help me. So I've been carrying myself here
You have no hope for what?
for that I can be helped.
Help to do what?
To become actually free from that.
From the guilt.
guilt.
I believe that in order to feel such intense guilt at this moment, that it's not coming from what you have realized at this point, but most likely you're using what you have realized to perform a function which you have learned to do many years ago, and that is to feel guilty, to reject yourself for some reason. I would not look so much at what you're discovering now, but how you were programmed to perceive yourself as a child from your parents and teachers. I feel that you're just, somehow there's a mechanism which is just using what you're finding now to add to a guilt which is already there. Do you believe that objectively you are guilty?
No.
So this guilt is an illusion, you mean?
Yes, but it is making me suffer.
Okay, this illusion, where does this...
Levels of my life.
Mhm.
Like every level of my life. Just about adding up.
So then you have a strong motive to get free. This guilt is an illusion. You are not guilty.
Yeah.
I mean, if we went to a court today, would you be found guilty? If we had a court here now, would you be found guilty?
Depends on the court.
Okay. Tell us, who would be the judge who would find you guilty?
There was a judge that did find me guilty of proselytization, brainwashing,
Hmm?
things.
Mhm. You feel guilty for that?
No, but this
Mm.
kind of judges could find me guilty who are
Mm.
uninterested in material achievement.
Hmm.
Things like anything spiritual is illusion.
Hmm. Okay. Are you guilty? Is that the reason you are guilty?
I'm not guilty for that. That's not a bad thing.
Okay. Okay. So clearly, are you guilty or are you not guilty?
No.
You're not guilty. Okay. Then why should you feel guilty? What is causing you to feel guilty?
Many things I do to myself.
But I think that my belief is that we do things to ourselves, self-destructive things to ourselves, because we feel guilty. It's the chicken and the egg here. I believe that the first and the most basic programming here is that I am not worthy. Somehow, this message went into the subconscious. Can you find out from where? From whom?
My mother.
From your mother.
What I can remember. I mean, it is very difficult for me because I have to say that because I've been working on. I mean, I've been thinking. Yes, it's my mother who said it when I was a child, and she repeatedly said.
She repeatedly said that.
Every day of my life until I was 17 and I escaped from the house. But the same time, because I followed some kind of spiritual life, I understand just theoretically with another part of myself that my mother was only a reflection of which makes me, be somewhere in between. I always feel myself a little like in a dream situation of in between, like of yes or no, of this and the opposite of that, and always like being there.
Self-doubt.
Self-doubt all the time. And
Okay. So, which is the first goal is for you to see clearly, as clearly as you can, the childhood experiences which created this belief. Then there is a technique which can be done, which perhaps Katie can do for you, or Betty can do for you, in which you will go back, you will experience that event again in a childhood regression, and you will experience that with the knowledge that you have now. We must make a distinction between an event and an experience. An event is something outside of ourselves. An experience is how we interpret the event. So we have a person saying to us, you are not worthy, you are not worthy, you'll never do anything, you're not good. Okay? And that's the event. How I take that event within myself depends on how I believe, what I believe. If I am a child, the most natural thing to believe is she's right, I'm no good. That's the most natural thing. As an adult now, you know that the reality is that she has some problems and that you are a very innocent young child and that you are worthy. You see? That's the reality. Isn't that the reality? That's the reality. Okay. So we go back, we re-experience the event, but now we imagine that that child has the knowledge that you have now. And this is relived, and the event is reconstructed in the subconscious mind. This may have to take place 2 or 3 times, 4 times, but gradually it will transform the contents of the subconscious. You see? So work on this, because your problem is not in the present. It's not that you're discovering some things now which are causing you to feel guilt. You're just using what you're finding now to continue doing something to yourself that your mother did to you for so many years. You're just continuing a process. You understand?
because there's so much knowledge and so much I've done to help people or self-sacrifice, as people say, like sacrificing material desires and things just for the benefit of others and spiritual benefit of myself. And I was never enjoying that. I never sat back and realized that, oh, I'm a good person if I do these things. I just kept it. A part of me was asking me more. You have to do more to prove yourself.
Exactly.
And it's never enough. It's never enough. Whatever I do, it starts trying to stop me.
So you may go through a process of not doing anything for some time in order to get free from that. You may. I see people sometimes, they just, I don't want to do anything now for anyone. They go to the opposite. But if you go through a stage like that, don't worry, you'll come back into balance. You know, when you take a ball in the sea and you put it underneath the water, and then you let go of it, it doesn't just come up to the surface and sit there, but it goes high, and then it comes down. You see, and often when we go from one state of suppression, and we free ourselves, we go to the other akriti, to the other opposite, and then we come back into balance sometimes. Okay. Bill, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, I don't know if I should ask this question now or privately. On Tuesday, I think I will. We were asked to write something on a piece of paper about this problem
Ah, yeah, the church.
What is that?
What's the problem with the church? Yeah. It's a problem we've had for about 15 years now. It's not a... Huh? Yeah, you can close it. It's a problem which you... no, I was surprised 15 years ago.